This is the second video for section 4.2, and we're still on working with percent formulas and using the circle for our portion, base, and rate. And you notice that on this video we have something that you're going to see a lot in business math, and that would be word problems, not just written out in a simpler form, but you have to figure out what numbers are important and be able to use those numbers. So it says you take an exam with 23 questions and miss 4. What is your score as a percent? This is something that I do all the time, convert something to a percent, and my base this time is going to be 23. That's how many problems there were total on, or to how many questions on the exam. We are looking for the percent, right? So we want to know what is the rate. And then they gave us 4, but we need 4 just so that we can see how many questions we got right, right? So we missed 4, but we're finding the percent of our score as a percent would be how many we got right out of 23, and that would be 19. So to calculate, we take 19, divide it by 23, and that gives us this number 0.8260. I looked at that wrong. And then we are rounding it to the nearest tenth of a percent, so that's going to be 82.6%, because you can see that this number is a 0, and that would be the tenths place. Once I convert it to a percent, that tenth of a percent is very important. Okay, so next. Some of these get really tricky, and so you guys are going to have to be sure and practice a lot. You want to buy a home. You can borrow 85% of the purchase price. Assuming you can make a down payment of $27,000, what price home can you afford? Okay, so let me label the circle, right? Portion, base, and rate. Let me write that again and make it look more like a P. On this one, the portion is the 27,000. That is a portion of what we're going to borrow, and I think that would make sense if you think about that, right? How much can we borrow? Because we can borrow 85% of the purchase price. Well, the amount they gave us, the 27,000, this is the down payment, and it happens to be 15% of the purchase price. So we have to understand on this one to do a switch here. I'm looking for the base, which is the amount I can purchase this house for, and then my rate started out as 85%, but 85% of the base is the amount I can borrow, not my down payment, just the amount I can borrow. And so that can't be the $27,000. So that means we have to say, I'm not going to use 85, I'm going to use 15, because the only other number I know in relation to this is the $27,000, and that's the down payment, right? So 15% of the purchase price, right, would be the 27,000, and 85% of the purchase price would be the amount I can borrow. So when we take the 27,000 and divide it by 0.15, remember I have to write this in decimal form for my multiplication, or for my division or multiplication, and so I end up with this amount, 180,000. So if you take 180,000 and you multiply it by 0.15, you'll get 27,000, and then the rest of that would be the amount I could actually, 85% of that would be the amount I can borrow. But 180,000 is the price of the home. If that makes sense, hopefully. Okay. So on this one, I'm going to label portion, base, and rate. Population of the largest county in a state is 3,780,000. while the population for the entire state is 6,450,000. What percent, okay, so we know we're looking for the rate. What percent of the state's population resides in the largest county? Okay, so what percent of the state's population, notice that, what percent of the state's population? And this was the state's population, right, for the entire state. So that is our base. We're going to put that here, 6,450,000. And then our portion will be the 3,780,000, which is how many people reside in their largest county. Now, to find our rate then, we divide the 3,780,000 by, that was supposed to be just a straight line, 6,450,000. And that's going to give me this decimal number of 0.5860. And then when I round that to the nearest tenth of a percent, it's 58. It's handy that there's a 0 right there, right? 58.6%. And that's my answer, right? That's the rate in this case. All right, on this one, we are looking at, how many do I have here? Okay, I'm just checking to see how many are going to be on this video. You own a restaurant. Ingredients for a ribeye dinner cost you $8.50. If ingredient cost should be 40% of the retail price of the meal, what should you charge customers? Okay, so let's figure out how we're going to set this up. If the ingredient cost should be 40% of the retail price of the meal, then that's supposed to be rate. So my rate is 40% of the retail cost, which means that's the part I'm looking for, right? What should you charge customers? The ingredients for this meal cost you $8.50. And so this is going to tell you what to charge the customers so that you make a decent profit. And 40% of the retail is the cost of the meal for you. So we take the $8.50, divide it by 0.4, right? That's going to be 0.4 in decimal form. And then we get this amount, 21.25. So that is the retail price right here, right? The retail price would be $21.25 for the meal. And hopefully then once you see how this works out, that makes some sense to you on how this was set up. Okay. Next, you take an exam with 23 questions, portion, base, rate. Now you guys, the reason I'm leaving those off is so that you can remember what goes where. Because if you got the portion on the bottom instead of on the top, then that's going to mess things up. The base and the rate could be on the, as long as they're on the bottom, it wouldn't matter if they change places, but the portion cannot change places. You take an exam with 27 questions and get 22 questions correct. What is your score as a percent? Okay, so we're looking for the rate, right, your percent. The base is 27 because there were 27 questions. We got 22 of those correct. So the calculation would be 22 divided by 27, which is 0.8148. And I usually just go out about 4 decimals. There may be other numbers there that I didn't write down because I have this worked out on another thing here. And when I change that to a decimal, or change that to a percent, the decimal to a percent, it's 81.48%. But remember this, I have to round it to the nearest tenth of a percent. So that means it will be 81.8 93.5%. You guys always remember you can pause and then go back and look at something again if needed. Okay, here's one more question. 93.6 is 18% of what number? Okay, so notice this of, and I've got the what number, and that's going to help me decide where to put everything in my chart here. Percent, base and rate, portion, base and rate. Sometimes I just say it wrong. Okay, so 93.6 is 18% of what number? So my 18% goes here. Of what number means I'm taking 18% of that base number that I don't know, and my portion is 93.6. All right, remember we're going to write this in decimal form. So 93.6 divided by 0.18, and that gives me 520. So what number is 520? 18% of 520 is 93.6. You can double check that if you need to. And that is the end of lesson 4.2.